Good morning, children. Yesterday we had finished with about how different kinds of not just about the whole system and the concept of marriage, but even different kinds of marriage had evolved within the Indian society. Because naturally we also discussed now which had gone on to till eight different forms of Hindu marriages, and we had also highlighted this fact that it all started happening for two very important reasons. Firstly, the society became more and more complex, and definitely the complexities gave rise to different situations as well. And also at the same time, as the geography or as the empire or as the kingdoms started expanding more and more, naturally different people from different diverse backgrounds, different cultures, different habits, different traditions, they also became part of the common fold. They also came on the platform. So naturally, you cannot just ask them that this is what we follow and you guys would also have to follow it. Otherwise, if you start doing it, then it would be very difficult to build an empire. Then what you have to do is, or the rulers always did, was they always respected that kind of diversity, their traditions, their cultures, their different gods, goddesses, everything, their festivals. And once you respect those things, and only then you can be an empire builder. You can be an empire builder. That's what all the great emperors and kings understood, that they could be great kings, they could be great empire builders only if they embrace all that diversity. Otherwise, if they started alienating these new people who were always being added to the kingdom, if they started alienating them, it would become extremely difficult to concentrate on governance and to concentrate on trade and commerce. Otherwise, the whole energy gets wasted in just trying to actually take care of the uprising, to crush the uprising, because there is so much of social unrest. Okay, now today we talk about the Gotra of women. Now, as we have seen, like many other, and rather like all the societies, Indian society was also to a great extent, male dominated, and not male dominated in sense of, everyone was listening to what the man of the house used to say, but also in terms of social hierarchies, in terms of traditions, in terms of conventions. It is very, very inclined towards what towards men, basically the gotra of men of women. So this topic we pick up today. One brahmanical practice evident from 1000 years before Christ was to classify people, especially the Brahmins, in terms of gotras. Each gotra was named after a Vedic seer, or that basically a maharishi, and all those who belonged to the same gotra were regarded as his descendants. Two rules about gotra were particularly important. Women were expected to give up their father's gotra and adopt that of their husband on marriage, and members of the same gotra could not marry. Now, students, this topic, definitely I would have loved to explain all this on the board. Unfortunately, I can't. But then you all of you know that you also now, because you are you quite mature now, so you know that all of you have a gotra. If you ask your father about your gotra, he would tell you that whatever your gotra is. Okay, because all Hindus have a gotra system, and they are classified into different gotras, but all of them originate from the Saptarishis, though I don't know if it is mentioned here in this chapter. But Saptarishis, they were they were kind of also known as the Manas Putra of Lord Brahma. Okay, the prominent main seven seers or Maharishis, and the people of and all the gotras have originated from them. To keep it short, to make the long story short, students, it would have been far more convenient to explain all this on the board, but this is, for now, this is what you should understand, that all the gotras come out of these seven Saptarishis. But in certain places we also have the presence of an eighth Rishi, Mahamuni, who was added because and I think it is Maharishi Agastya. But then the prominent Gotras, if you ask your dad, all of you would be coming under the Gotra, whether Gotham or he was again a great sage, and then it could be Bharadwaj, and then it could be Vashishta, of course. Now we see Maharishi Vashishta and Ramayana on television all the time, and then Kashyap as well. Then Atri Muni, of course, his wife being Anasuya, and people from Maharashtra, especially. Um, you must have also heard of um, Rishi Durvasa, and he was the son of Maharishi Atri. So, I would have loved to explain all this in the board, but just keep this in mind. So, the most important rules for the Gotra is that firstly, you cannot marry within your own Gotra. So, if someone happens to be the guy happens to be from the Gotham Gotra, his wife cannot be from Gotham Gotra. It is as simple, because then they would be considered to be brothers and sisters. So it has to be from some other Gotra. And the other thing, very important, is that the girl, the daughter, has to embrace the Gotra of her husband. Once she gets married. Yes, as long as she is not married, she is definitely from she carries her father's gotra. But after the marriage, it becomes her gotra becomes whatever her husband's gotra is. So because that's how it is in India, and in Hindu traditions, marriage has always been, it's about the union of not just the husband and wife. That's why we say it is about the families. There is so much that happens once the practice of marriage happens in India. Okay, so coming to the one way to find out whether this was commonly followed is to consider the names of men and women, which were sometimes derived from Gotra names. These names are available for powerful ruling lineages such as Satavahanas, who ruled over parts of western India and the Deccan, 2nd century before Christ. Several of their inscriptions have been recovered, which allow historians to trace family ties, including marriages. Uh, some of the Satavahana rulers were polygamous, that is, had definitely more than one wife, and an examination of the names of women who married Satavahana rulers indicates that many of them had their names derived from Gotras such as Gautam and Vashishta, their father's Gotras. So, as we just said, these were very, very prominent Gotras, and they evidently retained these names instead of adopting names derived from their husband's Gotras. So, essentially, what it is saying is especially the Satavahanas, they have been, they've been particularly mentioned, whereby, guys, you have to understand one very important thing here. Now, normally, Hindus, they have one husband, one wife, one husband. We do not follow polyandry and those kind of so many different permutations and combinations. So it was easier, whereby if a man has if a man has one wife, so naturally, once she marries and she's from a different gotra naturally, and then she adopts the gotra of her husband, right, after marriage. But then this is a simple situation whereby one husband, one wife. But in royal families, and particularly which has been mentioned, that Satavahanas have been mentioned, but I'm sure this complexity must have arisen in other royal families as well, whereby one man marries, probably he has two wives, 20 wives, who knows, right? Now, then it was very, very difficult to actually ensure that all the two or 20 wives, they would adopt the same gotra of a husband. Then it was not a very automatic kind of a thing to do, right? So naturally, some of the girls and some of the women would essentially retain their own respective gotras, which they had brought from their father, which their father had given them. So this is what is being talked about, that in generally, of course, what not generally but by rule, of course, the woman, even today for that matter, the girl gets married and her gotra changes. Now she ultimately would be having the gotra of her husband. Right, that's how it is, and that is the reason why the children then, if it happens to be the son, he gets the gotra of his father, right? Because yeah, that's how it is. And now, but what we are saying here is particularly in this chapter, in this paragraph, is in situations whereby a man had more than two wives, three wives, four, whatever number, then it was not so kind of sacrosanct. Now, were mothers important? Of course, mothers are always important. That's the next. We have seen that Satavahana rulers were identified through metronomics, namely derived from the mother. Although this may suggest that mothers were important, we need to be cautious before we arrive at any conclusion. In the case of Satavahanas, we know that the succession to the throne was generally patrilineal. So essentially, what they are saying is, though we are talking about the prominence of women, but ultimately, the ruling was, and the kingship always was determined by the patrilineal situations. Okay, and social differences within and beyond the framework of caste. You are probably familiar with the term caste, which in every Indian, of course, is familiar with the situation of caste, and there's no surprise there. The ideal order was laid down in the Dharma Sutras and Dharma Shastras. Brahmins claimed that this order, in which they were ranked first, was divinely ordained, while placing groups classified as Shudras and untouchables at the very bottom of the social order. Positions within the order were supposedly determined by birth. Students, yes, there are plenty of examples, and a whole class, at least an hour long, can be devoted. Once the school opens, we would discuss this in detail about the whole caste system, its origins, and its exceptions, and how in history, that is our the early history, right from the time of how different it was during Ramayana times, how different it was during the Dwapar Yuga, that is during the Mahabharata times. Ramayana was, of course, Treta Yuga. So how it has evolved the system of caste. It was not how we find it today. Like it is today, it is inscribed in stone, literally. Nothing can be changed. You cannot tamper with your caste. Whatever it is, it remains how you have been born with. But in the earlier times, how different it was, we would certainly look into it. And please remind me once the school opens, we shall indeed look into this topic. We shall continue tomorrow. Thanks.